Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette and I'm your host. Today my guest is Candice Staniek. So welcome to my show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so I'm interested. What is your journey? So you started being more in finances and now you're more in the area of healing and personal development. Can you tell us a little bit about your own journey, about your own transformation?
Yeah, so I started my undergrad in finance, as you mentioned, and I had the opportunity to work in corporate Calgary in internal audit. Not with numbers, because that's not my thing, but I went through understanding processes in business. And at one point, shortly after a review, my manager said to me, either you get a designation of some kind or you're not getting promoted. And I thought, well, I might not get promoted here, but I will get promoted. And so that started my journey on looking into other master's programs and degrees. And I rediscovered naturopathic medicine. I had actually had some interest in it sooner, but the doctor I was working with said, don't do it. It's way too much work. And so I had kind of put it on the back burner, but then I was reading the principles of naturopathic medicine, and one of them being a whole foods diet, being connected with nature and natural remedies for healing versus pharmaceuticals. And I just burst into tears. I thought, I'm already living like this, and wouldn't it be beautiful to share that with other people? So I did my prerequisite training, so I had to go back and take some sciences, and then I returned to school.
Yes, so, and of course, this is a huge transformation already in the topic. I can imagine being in corporate world, being in finances, and then understanding, okay, so how would it be like working in a totally different area, but also it sounds like you started your own business, so becoming an entrepreneur. Is this anything that is in your family already, or is it something that is kind of totally new? So how did your family react when you told them, okay, now I was successful in corporate and now I'm doing something totally different that is kind of not or sometimes in the mind of people not a real job or something like that. How did your family react on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be honest, I had some mixed reactions. Thankfully, my parents never tried to put us into certain types of careers. So it was always more like find something that you enjoy doing. So that part was easy. My mom, her question was, are you sure you want to do this? And I said, yes, not knowing all of the stuff. So one of the things, in the interview process with naturopathic medicine, they ask oh, what modalities do you like? And that's great. But what they don't ask is, are you ready to be an entrepreneur? And, if I was interviewing people, that would be one of the questions I would ask, because many times the doctors don't realize they also need to be business people on top of doctoring. And running your own business, whether it's inside of someone's business or your own individual, required a whole nother skill set outside of doctoring. So that was, it's fine for me because I have a business background. That's part of my nature, but it's not fine for a lot of the students because that's not part of who they are, which is okay, but it's not communicated to them. In terms of my family, I'm the first doctor in the family. I'm also the only entrepreneur outside of having had grandparents that did farming. But it's a little bit different style of entrepreneurship. And so my family was very supportive. My grandmother actually had a naturopathic doctor when she was younger, and she just thought it was fantastic. So I had lots of emotional support going through the process. Where it's been a little bit challenging was postgraduate. So trying to explain the ins and outs of entrepreneurship with my family, because they're of course used to having a regular work week and a paycheck, and that's a very different it's a very different feeling than being an entrepreneur and not knowing from time to time what income or flow or what responsibilities come with being a business owner also.
Yeah, I totally hear you. So I've been an entrepreneur kind of all of my life, and understanding, yeah, that there are ups and downs sometimes, or struggles, but also you can be flexible in your work. So this is also like, having the freedom to decide with whom you are going to work, when you are going to work, even where you are going to work. Yeah, there's nobody telling you and bossing you around. You have to do this, you have to do that. But it also means having a different kind of discipline and self-motivation and a strong why you are doing that. So how is this?
How do I do this? Well, it's part of my nature to be disciplined. That's been since I've been very little, to have that kind of internal drive, I guess. And perhaps it's part of my personality. I have a Capricorn rising sun, so we know that the mountain, or the goat, likes to climb up the mountain. So that, I guess that's part of my nature in terms of just my being, and also liking to continually learn, which goes very well with entrepreneurship, because there's always something either to understand in yourself or to learn as part of the business. But I mean, underneath all of that is just a desire to help people live a better life, whatever that looks like. Health to me is part of that, because of course, if we don't have our health, we don't have the other parts of our life. But if someone can reach their potential, that to me really is the ultimate goal of why we're here on the planet, because we all came with a certain purpose. And discovering that purpose, helping people discover that purpose is what I love to do.
So what did you figure out about yourself while you are still studying medicine, or European natural medicine? So what was like, it is always about like understanding more about yourself while you're in this kind of topics. And what did you figure out about yourself?
Well, I'm gonna share this with your audience. I think it's something people don't talk about. I discovered I was actually very angry. And one of the instructors that we had in class, well, there's a couple things. There was a statement in philosophy class that said, "Doctor, heal thyself." And I thought, yeah, how can a doctor help someone if they're not working on their own issues, because they can only take their patients as far as they've gone? So that was one statement. And about a year after that, we had counseling with a psychologist, and she had started to talk about any unhealed trauma, little t or big T, from the past that hadn't been resolved. We revert to that age under stress. And I knew at that time I had a stressful experience when I was 5. So you can imagine, as an adult, a 5-year-old does not function very well in an adult conversation. And pretty much because of the trauma that I had, it was kind of a frozen state. So I couldn't actually respond, even though intellectually I knew I needed to. I actually couldn't respond. And so that started probably a year-long process of working with this woman to go back and heal some of those traumas, so that I could bring all of myself into the current age. But the anger was one thing that had come up. I also discovered that I had an underlying anxiety that was there all the time. And I actually didn't know that it was anxiety. It was a kind of a feeling in the pit of my stomach. I thought it was normal because it had always been there. And thankfully, I mean, I don't know exactly how that disappeared, but I think I realized a couple of years ago that it was just gone. I didn't have that feeling anymore in my abdomen. So that was part of the journey as well. Other things through the process of going through that healing journey, I also discovered and learned to have compassion for others. You know, understanding that it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of grit to kind of go through that healing process. And so in understanding my own emotions, I'm better able to relate with others when they're going through their emotions, and there isn't really anything anymore that's uncomfortable for me. There's really nothing anyone can share with me that I'm surprised about, which to me is great for them because they can be in a space of just sharing without being worried about what I might be thinking, you know, as they're talking. So yeah, that's been some of the discoveries I've had through the process.
Yeah, and I think this is really amazing to understand that we have all our past experiences as children and young like teens or young adults, and all this is like you put this in a backpack and you have all this with you all the time, and then there will be a kind of a trigger, and yeah, the backpack is opening and showing you, oh, I have this inside and I have this inside, and yeah, you will react on that. So especially being a healer, people will come with problems to you. So there will be always a kind of a trigger or possible trigger when you didn't heal your own story. And
yes.
Yeah, so this is really important. And you know, what you said, that you can only go so far with your clients or your patients when you have seen your own shadow side, or your embraced your child that is still there with all the experiences. So absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. The triggers come up until they're not triggers anymore.
Yeah, so this is also interesting to see when you work with people that you can hold the space. And this means really, you know, that they can feel free to communicate whatever is inside of them and express it in a certain way. Yeah.
It's you know, learning the different aspects of humanity, right? We have positive sides, we have negative sides, and everything kind of in between. And having space to realize, like, we're all connected. So someone sharing their story or me sharing my story is just connected to something else or someone else. And so having that understanding gives people the space to share and go through their own transformation.
In our pre-interview conversation, you have told a little bit about that during the time you were studying, you have been in a relationship that was not very healthy. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, that sure. So there's a bit of a precursor to the relationship story. So in naturopathic medicine, you have a degree before you enter the medical training. And so I had been in my second year of medical training, and I had actually switched schools. And the second school that I had gone to, in second year, you begin to learn how to do a physical exam on your classmates. And as part of the physical exam, you have to talk about what you're seeing and finding and what you're not seeing and finding. And all through growing up in school, I was very eager to be one of the first to put my hand up to participate in something. And so I'd actually done that in this class that we were in. And to be honest with you, I had kind of been shocked the first year I was at medical school, and that part of that shock was still happening in second year. And the reason I share that is because I thought I had prepared appropriately for this case that I had to present in front of my colleagues. So there were about 10 or 12 of us in the room, plus the instructor. And much to my surprise, I was not prepared. And this instructor, who's also a doctor, embarrassed me in front of my colleagues, in front of all of them. She didn't take me aside and talk to me privately. She actually said something in front of everybody. And that was at the start of the year. The rest of the year, I had a very difficult time actually articulating and getting words out. In this class, I basically couldn't talk. And if I did talk, it was very minimal. And the reason why I'm sharing that story is because, as you might be guessing right now, is it really affected my self-confidence. So here I went from feeling like I was okay at school and could, work through the problems, to completely having any self-confidence I had destroyed for myself and in front of my colleagues. And so what had happened was, fast forward a couple years, and I had met somebody and thinking everything's fine, and then started to realize that I was being controlled and manipulated. And at that time, I didn't know anything about narcissistic relationships. I didn't obviously know about control. That's a little bit more obvious, but the relationship I had was narcissistic. The other person was narcissistic, and I had no idea what that meant. And so I had to kind of discover what that meant, but it was one of the most trialing periods of my life, because there were times when I felt like I was losing my mind. Literally, I thought I was going crazy, because I was like, did I think about this right? Did I actually, am I thinking about this right? And not to make the other person wrong, that wasn't it, but I was so confused in my mind that I couldn't tell what was right and wrong on my own. And when I went to seek counsel with somebody, I could get it in the moment, but then as soon as I got off the phone, I forgot what I had felt was okay. And it was such a trialing period of time. I'm thankful I had some professionals that were helping me, and I could finally see, but it took actually physically moving away to get some space to clear my head, to see that the situation was not healthy. And then it took some time after that to recover. And, it's interesting because, I still look back and think, what were the signs? And even still, I don't know that I could see the signs, some of the initial signs, even after thinking about it and being free from that for a while. So it's interesting. But what I can share with you also to give some comfort is that someone I know in my life also had a narcissistic relationship, and what we've discovered, and I say this with all kindness, we discovered that both of our ex-partners would say the same thing. Exactly, two different people had the same words, and it was just, we're like, oh my God, so this isn't just a individual person thing. They actually have a certain way of being that makes it more identifiable if someone's in that type of relationship. So I hope that gives people some comfort to know that they're not alone, but there is, more information out there to kind of help with that stuff.
Can you share some sentences that you did hear?
Oh, very common to hear would be, oh man, let me just think here. I'll have to think about that for a minute. It's very often that it would be something along the lines of, you don't have that right. You don't have that story. Your perspective isn't right. And you're sitting there thinking, I'm a logical person. I'm reasonable. I'm intelligent. How is it that I didn't think through this properly? Even after consulting people, even after consulting friends or professionals. And it creates this very common feeling within that type of relationship is self-doubt. self-doubt about anything and everything. And with that self-doubt then becomes a high level of stress. So what happened for me at one point through this experience was that it had come time to pay rent. And I had been paying rent for months in advance. And that particular month, I could not remember the amount that was required for rent. Even though I had paid it probably 10 times before, the same amount, could not remember. What I can also say is that, you know, if a person, if you're the type of person that doesn't have self-doubt and the self-doubt starts to creep in after you are in this type of relationship, probably something to look at. There's a lot of blame in the relationship too, in terms of the other person blaming, or, you know, they can be very charming people, and it can be both sexes. Someone I know in my life, one of her employers actually had a narcissistic tendency, and again, it took us 12 months to identify what exactly was going on, but this idea of self-doubt would creep in, or the stories would get a little bit twisted, and you're like, wait a minute, that's not how the story happened. And it would be kind of twisted in a way that the self-doubt would pop up, or there was like second guessing yourself about, you know, did I do that? Did they do that? And this kind of weird dynamic starts to creep in. Or another element that can come in is, this is common. My friend also experienced this, where you get set on your plan and the narcissistic person comes in, you have a conversation, they turn the words around in such a way that you end up agreeing with them and you're changing your decision completely. Even though you were solid on your decision before. And the thing is, it happens so subtly that you don't realize that you had shifted your mindset until after the conversation, and you're thinking about it and you're like, wait a minute, that's not how I had decided to have the conversation. But it's common. Like I said, both she and I had different people and same experience, and we'll just kind of reflect on it. And it's like, holy Dinah, like, how is this possible? Like 3 different people and same experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and people who are listening and now figuring out, okay, something is resonating with what I am in. So please call someone to get help to come out of such a relationship. So I think also that there are kind of some different stages. So at the beginning, there's often like this, I would call this the over-loving. No, yeah. So something like, so you're so amazing, you're so special, you're the only one, and let's move together, come into my house, and I give you 100 roses and whatever. So it is too quick, too much. Yeah. And yeah, at this moment, of course, perhaps you feel like, wow, this is so amazing. This is something like, we are so in resonance, and he really loves me. And often, yeah, he or she, so you said both sexes, will speak to you like he totally or she totally understands you, and like he always waited for you, that now you are there, you are the soulmate, something like that. And you feel like, well, I'm feeling really special, and now I found someone who really is with me and wants to marry me at first sight, kind of that. And then it starts like, and I'm not sure if I'm bringing the different stages in the right order, but anyhow, you can do a research, figure it out. But they are kind of certain stages. And so next thing that will happen is that they start isolating you from your social environment, which means like they get jealous when you go out with a friend. They ask you not to call your parents every weekend, and so on. Perhaps they ask you not to work anymore because he is the one who has enough money and you just be his princess. So it's kind of an isolation from your social system. Then the next stage is kind of starting to control. Like,
Yes.
asking, where are you going? Whom did you speak? What have you done? What have you read? So it's kind of this control mechanism.
Yes.
Yeah. Then another one is like what you already shared a lot, like destroying self-esteem, destroying self-confidence, making the other one small, like from you are the best and the only one. They start like, no, you're too stupid to do this, and even that is not what you can do, or same thing again, and always you are not able. Look at this one and look at that one. So
yes,
this destruction of self-esteem, bringing in the doubts about yourself, and you shared a lot of that already.
Yes, I was constantly compared to other people that he knew that were doctors, and I was like, well, I'm not them. I'm not them. And to your point, Swanette, absolutely controlling. I mean, I was asked one day, well, what took you so long to text me? And I was like, I stopped at the grocery store. Like, I don't need to say to you that I'm going to stop at the grocery store before I phone. But it would be stuff like that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And then it is like when you're already like, you're isolated from your social system, you're controlled, you lose your self-esteem. The next thing is happening that this person also starts speaking bad about you in front of other people. Yeah, so you hear from friends, oh no, your boyfriend told me that you are whatever, and something bad will come up. So it's like, or sharing things about you that are private, that there is something that you would never share with other ones, but like he is showing you, okay, you look at her, no, she was so great, and now she's becoming so stupid. And so also this like speaking behind the back. I don't know if we say that in English, but in German we would say.
Yeah.
So also this is something, did you experience this as well?
I don't know. I can't say for sure if I did or didn't, because I was in a city where we didn't have a lot of common friends because I had moved. So I don't know for sure that I did or didn't. So that part I can't speak to directly.
Yeah, but also moving to another town means that you are more isolated and dependent on him. So,
yes.
Yeah, so this is also something that is created, is dependency. Dependency, having him only as a relationship. Dependency often also in money, so that you can't move out because he or she is paying for everything. Like, yeah, you stop doing your job and just be the wife in the household, for example. So you stop working, you don't have your own money, you have to ask for, can I have money for buying whatever? And he can set you on a budget and say, okay, for buying things for the household, this is your budget, however you do that. And if you have, for example, children who needs something, then you have to calculate how you can manage the budget. So dependency is also something that is very important if this happens to someone.
Yeah, I had a lot of stress around relationships at school, and I opted not to really have a lot of relationships at school because it was way too stressful. Questioning like, oh, I tried to phone you and you didn't answer your phone. And I was like, I'm trying to study. I'm in medical school, I need to study. But it's stuff like that. And, or if I did answer a phone call, it would be 50 questions, who are you sitting with? What are you talking about? And it's like, you can imagine that, it can be embarrassing to answer those questions when the person's sitting right there. What are you doing? And times 50 questions. And it did happen to me one time where I did share what I was doing, and my friend across the table, like her eyeballs got big. I was just like, holy Dinah, Like, who's on the phone? And I was very embarrassed. It was a super uncomfortable experience to have. And I mean, the other thing too, I think you touched on it, the jealousy piece. You know, if I had any conversation with another fellow, that was a fight essentially. And, you know, I'm with someone right now and we joke about being attracted to other people, because we trust each other and know that, you know, we can honestly say to each other if we are attracted, and that's it. We know we're not going to act on it, but it's just acknowledging that we're human beings. Of course, everybody's attracted to other people. If they're not, you know, then it's like, you know, what's going on there, right? Like there's an animal component, like, not to be crude, but we're human beings. There's an element of animal. So of course we're attracted to other people, for whatever reason. And so I appreciate very much in my relationship now of just joking. It's like, oh, who's your girlfriend texting you? And it's like, haha, really? You think I have another girlfriend? I'm like, no, but I just had to bug you. You know, so it's totally kind of 180, and it's I'm very grateful for that now.
Yeah, yeah. So I would like to add a little bit more. Also, that, yeah, you said that this feeling of being kind of depressive and not being under so much stress that you were not even able to remember things that have been usual for you. So I think also if people start feeling this, now they're confused or they feel depressed, and even sometimes if it is really getting worse, becoming suicidal, especially if cruelty and violence will come in, not only on the verbal, I'm missing the word, verbal area, but also when it becomes really violent on the body.
Yeah. So again, great points. I definitely was in a state of depression. There were suicidal thoughts at times. You know, I guess maybe because of, like, I never was going to act on it. But if anyone listening has a feeling of wanting to act on it, please contact your friends and family to get people into your team to help watch out for you, because that's a really scary place to be in. And one of the most scariest places I had actually through this whole process was that he was coming over to visit, and I was so utterly stressed out that I wanted to calm down. And so I had actually poured myself some alcohol. And I watched myself do that, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is really bad if I feel like I need some alcohol to participate in the relationship at that time. And I knew before things were happening, but that was a bit of a wake-up call for me. And thankfully, I'm not like a big drinker at all by any means. So it was a sign for me, and I was aware enough to realize it was a sign. But it was really scary to actually recognize in myself that I felt like I needed something like that to get through a conversation. So again, to your point, Swanette, if people are realizing that part of their personality is changing, or that they're relying on things to function in that type of relationship, it's time to get out. And the one thing, a dear friend of mine and psychologist, she said, and I go back to this statement, so if you need to write it down or, you know, tattoo it to your eyelids, the statement is, unless they get a brain transplant, they will not change. Right? So anyone out there who's in this type of relationship expecting their partner to change, it's not going to happen. This is part of how they are, but you know, and it depends if a person wants to work with them, but recognize they're not going to change. Like, what's the likelihood of someone getting a brain transplant? 0. So if that's the case, this person's not going to change. And, you know, you as the listeners, me at the time, it doesn't matter a bazillion things that you do, you're not going to be better in that relationship because they've torn you down so far that even if you built yourself back up, you do not need to change. That's not the issue. The issue is their personality and how they are.
And you already said, so you will figure it out by you changing your personality, you're changing your behavior that is not usual for yourself. And even if you figure out now, okay, you said that this was a moment when you said, okay, something is going wrong here, I have to leave. And even if you now have the strength to speak to someone or to leave the relationship, perhaps you will come up again like, okay, give me a second chance. And okay,
yes,
we can't do a brain surgery at the moment, so don't believe.
Yeah, don't believe. You know, that's how they are. And maybe like, you know, there could be a lot of reasons why this person came into your life. Like, is it karma? Did these bad tendencies exist the whole time? Did they come out because of the dynamic between two people? It's really hard to say, but you know, many people will confirm that have gotten out of these types of relationships, that other person will not change. That's how they are. And as much as it might be scary to leave, I promise you there's something better on the other side. God didn't put, God, the universe, whatever term you use, the universal power didn't put people on the planet to suffer. Not why we're here. Our purpose is not ever to suffer. As part of the suffering is part of the growth, but it's not our purpose, our overall purpose. So there is something better for sure.
When you now look back to this time, what have been your own learnings, your own personal growth?
I had to rebuild my self-confidence. I think, you know, like I said, school was part of it, that kind of instigated that whole thing, but I've had to rebuild that. And quite frankly, in probably almost every area of my life, because it did affect my confidence even in treating patients. And so there were times when I was like, I don't even know if I know what I'm doing. And I would have to go back and you know, look through the patient charts and be like, okay, these people are getting better. So I must know something, at least to listen and, you know, rely on my education from time to time. But self-confidence would have been one of the areas of growth. Trusting myself, that's been a big one to kind of go back and work on, in terms of checking in with myself and reaffirming with myself on a constant basis. Yeah, I did read that situation right. I do know how to logically look at a situation. I do know how to intuit or feel in a situation. And when it doesn't feel right, I practice trusting that. So that's one thing, is I've exercised that intuitive muscle, if you want to call it that, to really trust. If something doesn't feel good, I'm not going to do it. Doesn't matter how good it sounds, I'm not going to participate. And I've had some of those experiences come up where it was like, oh, this sounds really great, but in my gut, something fell off. And I was like, well, I don't know why it's off, but I must have to trust that. Other areas of growth is in terms of understanding relationships. And I can't really say all of the things, because understanding relationships is one of my bigger life lessons. So for me, it's a very, very big undertaking, because it comes up a lot for me, as it's one of my major life lessons, like I said. But understanding relationships in terms of dynamic, what's a healthy relationship? What does that look like? And what's an unhealthy relationship? And, you know, having the courage to recognize that even nice, caring people can be in an unhealthy relationship with us. I had a very close girlfriend, and unfortunately we're not friends anymore because she was in this category of narcissistic. As soon as I wanted to focus on myself and heal some of the things in my relationship on my own, which is the responsible adult mature thing to do, she felt offended. I wasn't focusing my attention on her. And that's one of the key things of a narcissistic person, is that they want your attention on them. And when you don't do that, they start to get grumpy and angry and controlling and manipulative. And her behaviors were much more subtle, but it ended our friendship. So all of those things in there are things I've sort of reflected and learned on. And thankfully, I have close girlfriends in my life that we can talk about and process these things and come to new insights in terms of, how it shows up, so we can support each other and other people in our life.
So this is kind also like creating a skill set, what you said, being more intuitive. Also being more an observer, like going into a meta position to figure out what is going on right here between people, in relationships, for example. Mm-hmm. How do you use this, and of course all your studies now in your work?
Yeah, so in my work, well, there's a couple of things. I'm currently taking a coaching program, and so we're learning different tools to create a good coaching relationship with clients, and which does feed into the relationship part, because one of the most critical things, well, there's several actually, but one is rapport. How do you create rapport with somebody that you don't know right away? Another element that's for me tied into intuition is presence. How present can I be in the conversation? And presence means, can I listen to what the other person is saying without having to have a thought in my head, without having to have a response ready? And what that allows me to do is it allows me to hear that intuition. And I see intuition, of course, there's information from the body, but to me, intuition is also being available for consciousness. And so the way I use that in my practice is I go through an intake with patients, which is very detailed. We're talking from anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes about their history. And also, as part of my assessment, I do muscle testing. So I can test different substances against the body and see if there's any imbalances. But when I do the muscle testing, in order for it to be more accurate, I have to be an empty vessel. I can't muscle test and already know what I think the person has problems in. I have to muscle test as a clear, pure channel as best as I can to see what their body is going to tell me. And then the intuition also comes in terms of questions that I may ask that might not seem like typical medical questions. So of course I'm going to ask the medical questions, bowel movements, that type of stuff. But I'm also going to listen for questions that perhaps a person didn't talk about directly, but need to be asked. So that's where the intuition comes in.
Can you go a little bit deeper into what kind of questions these are? Of course, you said you do your assessment, and these are the medical questions. You're using kinesiology to test on the body.
Yeah. So I actually have a recent case that's very interesting. So this woman has right-sided pain, which isn't miraculous on itself. But what's interesting is that she has constant headaches only on the right side. It radiates from the back of her neck down to the right side of her back torso, and then it kind of comes up the back of the head also, but mostly on the right side, constant pain. And that's not typical. It's not typical to have such a far-reaching radiation pain with a headache. Usually they'll radiate, but not like that. And then it's right-sided. So in the conversation with her, I typically ask, did you have any injuries? Did you have any motor vehicle accidents? Did you have any concussions? And she's like, well, yeah, what's really interesting is I was hit by a very large metal object on my jaw on the right side. And it threw me across the ground. And I was like, oh, that's a large impact on the side of her head. And what's also interesting is that with her story, she had tried lots of things. She tried cranial sacral therapy. She tried acupuncture. She tried chiropractic. She tried all these things that I normally probably would suggest to her. But the one thing she didn't try was energy medicine. And I was like, well, that's interesting. No judgment, just interesting. And what had come to me in this conversation with her was that her energy body had shifted. So we have our physical body, and then we have our energy bodies that are around us. Some people have the ability to see them. I don't, but I can sense them sometimes. And so our energy body, if we're in full balance, is around our physical body. But for her, my sense that had happened was that because it was such a huge impact on a very small region of her face, is that the head portion of her energy body got shifted to the side. And so when that happens, instead of the communication happening in the body called meridians, which is part of Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine, instead of those energy systems communicating with her physical body, they're to the side. So our work together is going to be to help shift this moved energy to be in alignment with her body so the entire system can communicate again together. Also, what came up in her information was that there's likely a heavy metal toxicity that's affecting the inner ear, which is contributing to the headache. There's a recurring ear infection, which isn't going away, so now we have to deal with that. And then a little bit to her surprise, the right side of her face is where she has her cell phone all the time. So the cell phone's also causing a problem. So she has all these confounding factors that are contributing to her ear and the headache and some of this other stuff not going away, that all is right-sided. So we're addressing that now. I don't have an outcome for you yet, but that's some of the stuff that comes up with the intuition. What are all the factors that could be contributing to her constant pain? How did that come about? Why is it not going away? And those intuitive questions just come up, and I just ask. I really believe the person knows the answers. They just need some stimulation to have them come out.
Yeah, so this is really a holistic approach already, like bringing all the different elements together to help people to heal.
Yeah.
So, as you're describing it, nobody would even perhaps ask this kind of question if you go to a normal doctor.
No, or they might not even have time to ask. The other component of the holistic approach is, I'm still considering, do we have to need to have to bring in other practitioners to help if the energy medicine I'm going to do with her doesn't help shift the energy. Of course, I'm going to have her involved. Probably what I'm going to do is we're going to think back to that event and bring up the energy and then kind of shift it back and kind of go through that so her body can release the trauma. But I'm still thinking, are there other practitioners that will be able to help after we get started?
So what are typical health problems people are coming in for you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. A lot of my patients have fatigue that's been long-standing. I think one of my patients with the longest is 15 years of fatigue. And that one I'm partly attributing to a pituitary issue. So the pituitary is right behind the forehead, and that happens in women sometimes after pregnancy. So everything gets shifted. We know things get shifted downwards, but they also get shifted upwards because there's different diaphragms in the body, and so the pressure can go both directions. So fatigue is one of the things I work with. Gut infections is pretty common, or dietary GI issues, so constipation, diarrhea, that's pretty common. And I would say hormone, and then the other one would be kind of mental health, so anxiety, depression kind of come up as well.
So are these mostly women who are coming to you, or is it kind of mixed?
Yeah, mostly women, some kiddos, and then some men. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like that. So
yeah, I think it's pretty common that way, but my practice looks like that. Mm-hmm.
So you already spoke a little bit about the process, and what are the tools that are very special that you use, for example, to heal people, to heal the women?
Yeah, so some of the extra stuff that I use, so frequency specific microcurrent. So that's a frequency device. It's not a TENS machine because the device actually is meant to heal tissue in the body. The device does the healing, any tissue in the body. One of my mentors, Dr. Musnick, shared the device with me, and it's been a life changer for some people. So we worked on anxiety. I have some patients with PTSD, concussions, very huge. So those are some things that I like to use the device for. Injection therapy, that's another area that I do as well. And I do quite a bit around kind of the psychotherapy. So working on understanding the mind and the body. I'm not sure if psychotherapy is really the best thing, but I do talk a lot about the ego, the body, the connection with others, and how people can find their own autonomy. As much as we're all connected, we don't have to feel the pain of the world. And so I do a lot of talking around how people can kind of create their own autonomy to take care of themselves and return the healing of other people to themselves, because we're in a time period where people are responsible to do their own work. So of course they can have support, but they are responsible to do their own work at this time in history. So I will talk a lot about that. And then with this patient that's coming up, I do something called quantum touch. And so it's an energy modality where I connect with universal energy, and I'm the conduit for the energy to pass through. And the person's body utilizes the energy as it sees fit. So that removes me from guessing where they need healing in their body, and their body can just use it as they need to. So that's been great for kind of pain management and moving some stuck energy for people.
Wow, this is a huge toolbox.
Yeah.
I would like to go a little bit deeper because you said that this is also something that is coming up right now in this special time, that of course, especially I think women are the ones who are the healers and the givers, but also taking over all the pain from the global consciousness, from other people. And I think this is important to understand, that we have to do our own work. And of course, if someone asks us directly if they need support, no question to help, but it is not like kind of what I see, grabbing all the people where you think they need help and like, yeah. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
so that's right. Don't grab all the people. Yeah, so one of the things, you know, some of the people I work with, not everybody, but some people are what we call empath. they feel other people's emotions, pain, etc. I'm aware of this because I'm an empath as well. And one of the most helpful things someone said to me was that you don't have to feel people's stuff 100%. And I was like, oh, this is a miraculous idea. So I tell myself, I tell my body, I only want to feel things 5%. And what I've also learned through my medical training is that when the conversation and the interaction's done, then it's done. I don't need to feel any more of what's going on for that person. So what I'm able to feel at that time allows me to relate and allows me to interact in terms of questions I might be asking. But when the conversation's done, then it's done. That kind of happened naturally on its own in school, because you have to be present for your patients when you show up, and thinking about someone from 30 minutes ago isn't helping the person that you're with. So that was kind of part of the training that took place. But what I want to share with people is that, you know, we're in a time period right now where there's lots going on globally. And for those of us that are quite sensitive, we might get up in the morning and feel angry and not know why. But what I want to say is that if you're not generally an angry person, and that's just one emotion, there's tons, it's probably not yours. And one of the things that I feel gets overlooked is, or not talked about enough, is that we think that everything that's in our head is ours, but it's not all the time. And so part of this allowing people to go through their own healing process is giving yourself permission to let other people's stuff go, and not feeling responsible to fix other people's stuff. One of the statements that another person said to me, also very helpful: if I step in and try to fix someone's problem, I'm delaying their learning in that problem. And I thought, oh, geez, I don't want someone to take 5 years to heal something because I had to interject 50 times when they could have maybe healed it in 12 months on their own. So, you know, of course, as women, or as, you know, whatever role that we think that we came to this planet with, we want to help because we don't want people to feel in pain. But the crux of it is, were you asked for assistance? Did someone ask you? And if you weren't asked, did you ask permission to share? And so if someone can take that away and just, you know, understand that, you know, each person has their stuff, you know, and asking permission is very powerful. It gives a person a choice in that moment, and that can be healing of itself. Maybe they never had a choice. I always had someone telling them what to do, and you're the first person that asked. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. So especially, and this resonates with me, of course, because I'm a coach, and I'm also spiritual, like I'm clairvoyant and precognitive. So when I'm open as a channel, all the information from other people, I can read that. So they're coming to me. So when I go outside, I'm always in my protection mode. Otherwise, I feel it immediately when it happens. So sometimes I go down to the beach, having a sunset, and someone is showing up. I never have seen this person before, and for whatever reason, it happens that they sit down on my table, at my table, and they start talking about what is going on in their life. And I think, where is my label? And then I know, okay, I was here, I'm sending out this frequency. Come to me, tell me a story. I'm interested, I'm helping you. And then I figure out, okay, this is not, I'm not working at this moment. So no, I'm telling these people that it's nice to meet you. And it's also nice to have a conversation. But if you need a consultation, please make an appointment.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So this happens. And it is clear that especially for people that are very sensitive, that are empath, that are in the that are healers or therapists, we really need to kind of protect ourselves if we are not doing our job. But when we are doing our job, being there and being present, what you said, no, concentrating on the conversation we just have and not making up our mind about theories, why people are telling you that, but being like a vessel and then giving, asking for also like in our job now, asking for permission if you can share what you're thinking about it. No?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, when we give ourselves permission not to feel everything, what I've noticed for myself is that I kind of feel like I'm in my own little bubble most of the time. And not because I necessarily did a protection bubble, but I can go out in public and not feel bothered by everything despite what's going on. And it's not that I don't care about those things, I certainly do, but just not affected by it. And it's we do more for the world when we can be in a place of happiness and joy than in a place of anger and fear. So I would rather, be admitting the happiness and joy than the worry. So kind of giving ourselves permission for that also gives other people permission for them to do it themselves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And understand what you said about the responsibility. So everybody is responsible for their own healing, and if they want a consultation, of course they can call you and if they want to call you or come in contact with you, are you only working in person or are you also working online? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so people can find me in person and online. I have hello@drcandicestaniek.com. So I believe my contact information will be below the podcast. So we don't have to try and pretend to spell it. And then I have a 6-week Energize You online program that helps people really set the foundation for sustained energy in their life. And we really look at habits, we look at food, we look at chemicals. Some of my clients have really liked talking about lab work. It's been very empowering for them. And then we touch a little bit on some of the psychosocial element. So some of those, like I said, it sets up the foundation for people to kind of get ready, and then they can just kind of leap from there, if you will. So yeah, and then of course there's Instagram and Facebook, but again, the links are going to be in the podcast. So I very much look forward to hearing from you, and please don't feel shy to reach out.
Yeah, so I will put all the links down in the show notes, and people can easily reach out to you. Yeah. Last but not least, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to share?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of stuff. I mean, maybe the one parting thing I can leave with people is just know you're never alone. I know it might feel like that at times. Certainly we've all had that experience where we might feel like we're alone or no one understands us, but your tribe is out there somewhere. Your tribe is out there, and it's just a matter of talking to enough people that you find someone that sees you, can hear you, and accepts you just as you are.
Thank you so much for the last words as well. And thank you for being my guest on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much, Swanette. This was a lot of fun. And yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, spiritualchangemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual Changemakers Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.